I actually start martial art because I was bullied at school. I had big problem at school. Instead of focusing on what the teacher was explaining in front of the class, I was focusing on how I'm gonna get out of the class, take my books, and reach the bus before the bullies get me and hit me.
Back in the day, he was like 3 years older than me, was bigger, he was beating me up in the bus, this guy.
Fighting is unbearable. I do it because what it gives, what it provides me. But bigger the risk, bigger the reward. I've done it only to obtain what I have now. The freedom of life, the wealth, the health, even more important. But I needed to go through. Then I always had a goal that I wanted to accomplish for a long time, a vision that I had since I'm a kid.
UFC welterweight champion of the world,
Georges St. Pierre, to most the MMA GOAT and one of my all-time favorite fighters. Born in Quebec, Canada, Georgie comes from humble beginnings. He had a sports background with areas of wrestling, BJJ, boxing, and specifically karate influencing him the most. He quickly rose through the ranks at the start of his MMA career, getting a title shot after just a second win in the UFC. However, as great as things started, George would soon realize the taste of defeat. George would take on a seasoned Matt Hughes at UFC 50 for the vacant UFC welterweight championship. The fight seemed fairly even at the start, with a mix of wrestling exchanges and both men switching top and bottom position.
Hey, stop! That's good!
But in a wild finish, Hughes would submit GSP right before the end of the first round. This was the first defeat that George would swallow, but the man's mindset wasn't phased. He would come back determined, and after a 5-fight winning streak, taking out the likes of Strasser, Miller, Trigg, Shirk, and Penn, the rematch with Hughes was set.
I'm not impressed by your performance, and I look forward to fight you in the near future.
George ended up avenging his loss, TKOing Hughes, and finally capturing the belt.
Georges St. Pierre is the new welterweight champion!
Time for him to go on and remain unbeaten for the rest of his career with only one loss.
Oh yeah. Now it gets exciting.
Enter Matt Serra. In George's first title defense, he'd faced the goofiest 11-1 underdog. Serra was fresh off winning Tough 4 after a split decision win against Chris Lytle. At the time, no one, and I mean no one, thought the man was gonna win. But in one of the greatest upsets in UFC history, Matt shocked the world and went on to knock GSP out and become the welterweight champion. This one is up there with the likes of Rousey Holm, Silva Weidman, Nunes Pena, and Bisping and Rockhold. GSP wouldn't let that bog him down as he'd quickly bounce back with the decision win over Josh Koscheck. Champ Serra was out with a back injury, so GSP and Hughes had a trilogy set for the interim UFC welterweight belt. GSP would Matt Hughes by submitting him in the final seconds of the second round. This was one of those full circle or coincidental moments in MMA, which are getting a bit too common for comfort, especially the Silva and Weidman leg breaks. That one freaked me out when Weidman snapped his leg against Hall. I watched it live and couldn't believe that the man that broke Silva's leg broke his leg years later. Anyways, after some sweet payback on Matt, George had a rematch set with none other than Matt. GSP would beat Serra's ass, make him curl into a ball, and get that belt back. From here on, GSP ran rampant and beat anyone that challenged for the belt. Fitch, Penn, Alves, Hardy, Koscheck, Shields, Condit, and Diaz. GSP remained the king of the welterweight division. Didn't seem like the man would ever be beaten again, until finally, on a cold night in November of 2013, Johnny Hendricks entered the picture. Haha, Georgie got the dub. Big Rig, funny ass name, was on a 6-fight winning streak and may or may not have had a bit of help from extracurricular activities, if you know what I mean. But then again, George could have also been participating in these extracurriculars.
Everybody's on steroids.
Nonetheless, the fight between Hendricks and Pierre was as close as they come. GSP ended up winning a controversial split decision, and when I say controversial, I mean controversial.
Anybody here think that Johnny Hendricks didn't win the fight? I'm blown away that George St. Pierre won that fight.
GSP's face was mangled, and the post-fight press conference was awkward. To make it all worse for Dana, GSP vacated the belt, will never be seen or heard from ever again.
I have to go away for a little bit at least. All right, I'm coming back now.
That is, until March of 2017, GSP entered the headlines again. It was announced that George had re-signed with the UFC and had a contract for 4 fights. The GOAT was coming back, and his opponent, the middleweight champion, Michael the Count Bisping. All the hype was there, but controversy and sudden changes appeared all around. George had a hard time going up so much weight. The dude packed on an extra 20 to 25 pounds. That made life, let alone training, harder. He would force feed himself and even threw up on multiple occasions during his bulk. He ended up with ulcerative colitis, difficulty sleeping, cramps, and even had blood when going to the bathroom. All the while, GSP had to go through a training camp and prepare for a fight going against a UFC champion after being away for 4 years. These setbacks led to the fight getting postponed, but it would finally take place at UFC 217 in November of 2017. I'll just quickly mention that Pierre threw up again the morning of the fight. Like, I don't know about everyone else, but when I throw up, I immediately lose any energy in my body, and I can barely move for the rest of the day. Now imagine that feeling by having to be in a title fight in a couple hours in front of the world. The man has a tank of a mindset, that's for sure. Out of all these struggles, I think the worst part of the whole event for GSP was Bisping's trash talk. The man had an F-bomb like every 10 words or something.
Where do you feel the win over GSP?
Boo this motherfucker. This is how stupid you look with those fucking head. You look like a fucking idiot. These are your fucking people, man. You know, you need to stop the fucking embedded filming. Go for fucking leg locks. I couldn't give a shit.
I get it. The trash talk gets the attention and views and makes more money. But poor GSP was
fucking face caved in. It's like I was on fucking fast forward. That's how I won this fucking belt. Fucking slowing down. This ain't going.
Are you intoxicated or something?
GSP would submit Michael Bisping and become a 2-division champion. But unbeknownst to Uncle Dana, GSP had a surprise in store.
I think there's a chance he vacates that belt and goes to 170. Or I mean, there's a lot of monsters in that division.
I don't want to hear that. That's not what I want to hear. I want to hear he's going to defend his 85-pound title. That's the agreement we made.
If he comes and says, it's too big, they're too big, I can't do it, I don't want to do it.
I'm going to be super pissed.
He would then vacate the belt again after not being able to continue at such a heavy weight. A true legend of the game, he was later inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame in May of 2020. A true GOAT both in and out the cage, unlike others. GSP is such a likable guy. He's the epitome of a true martial artist. He was focused and a student of the game. GSP was ahead of his time in the way he approached MMA. When George was champ, the UFC and MMA as a whole were just starting to gain traction. The sport was nowhere near where it is today. George was one of the first fighters to actually apply himself to learning all facets of mixed martial arts. This of course made his skill set so well-rounded. I mean, the guy literally had no wrestling background, but was the best MMA wrestler during his reign. He had a focused mindset and didn't go out partying or skip out on training. He also had one of the most stacked killers row of a team behind him. I'm talking John Danaher, Faraz Sahabi, Freddie Roach, Greg Jackson, and Phil Nurse. These are the best of the best when it comes to coaches. GSP truly invested and applied himself to MMA. He's a great ambassador to the sport and a good role model for the young ones to look up to.
There's a lot of things that turn me on in life is women, dinosaurs, and the people that...
Remember to like, subscribe, and comment down below for the algo. I'll catch you all in the next one.